Hi, I'm Matthew Burchette, and this is Curator on the Loose. What? Oh, gotta go. Before there was this, there was this. This is a model of the Wright brothers wind tunnel. They built it in 1901. Now why? Because they weren't getting the information that they wanted from the mathematics they were using. In fact, they built this to refine their wing and propeller shape, and it worked really well because the Wright Flyer, as we all know, took off. That's a good thing. Now, if you look at this, it's not really that big. And I'm assuming that wind tunnels today have gotten quite a bit bigger. In fact, a lot bigger, and we are going to go see one. Eric.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Matthew. Nice to meet you.
Excited to have you here today.
Thank you. This is really cool. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I'm an aerodynamic testing engineer. So I work with the team trying to make sure that we fit all of the parameters of our customers or business partners and make sure that we get every single thing that we can control exactly right, whether that's the flight conditions, so that's like speeds and the angle of attack, the physical location in the model. And then we also make sure that we try and get it done quickly and safely as we possibly can. So a lot of that work is in Excel, as you might expect. But at the end of the day, I still get to work on stuff that's right back here in the test section, real life models.
That's awesome. Now, there is a diagram of the tunnel that we're going to see. Can you kind of walk us through this?
I'd love to. I think that's a great way. So we're actually out here, what we call the operations floor.
Okay.
And so what we can actually do today is we'll start here, I think, in the test section. And then we'll be able to kind of look and follow some of the flow path downstream to that first corner turning vane. We'll talk more about what that means.
Okay.
And then that flow continues and goes around, and it turns again right as it gets to this big nacelle and this big engine. And so this fan is being driven by this massive motor, as you can see, 55,000 horsepower. It's like 47 megawatts when it's churning at full tilt. And then what we'll do is we can't actually walk into this fan section just for protection, but we'll actually pop out down here and we'll do a quick view of that fan on the downstream side. So just after the air is accelerated as much as it's got all its energy and pressure, and then we'll walk down and we'll continue and we'll take a peek at the plate fin heat exchanger. And so there is where we actually have all of this air that's been heated up because it's been added, so much energy has been added to it. We actually then go through that heat exchanger, and on the back side, we're getting to 100 degrees. There's like this 40-degree differential. And then on that point, we actually turn it again, the third quarter turning vanes and the fourth corner turning vanes, to loop it back down so that we can go through these flow straighteners, honeycombs, similar to like the straws that we make in our tabletop models of wind tunnels. And then what we'll do is we'll see the construction down to the test section where we actually begin our day. So it's a pretty cool thing. It's all closed loop, and it's really easy to kind of see how everything pieces together after you get to each different component.
All right. So not being a scientist and not even attempting to play one on TV, I kind of figured that it was just going to be a straight shot. Why all the curves, and then why are we going smaller and then getting bigger and then getting bigger and then getting smaller and getting bigger, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So all we're doing here is we're making sure that we make the cross section, that box, smaller and smaller, so the air has to go faster through that section versus when it's out here, that big cross section, so that the air goes slower. And we want to slow it down in some parts, speed it up in others, and then we want to make sure it's at the peak speed or the smallest cross section there in the test section.
Okay, that makes sense.
As far as the square, it's a really good question. It's a lot about power efficiency. So the nice thing is that when you push so much air downstream, if you were to just have it exhaust after the test section here, so we go nacelle, and if we were to eliminate this entire section, you'd be accelerating all that air from 0 speed outside all the way up to test section speed and losing any of that power as it goes out the exhaust. When you close the loop, you get to use all of that energy, which isn't 100% retained, but some of that energy in the air itself gets to start the process over again. So you get to save a lot of the energy rather than always trying to blow all this air downstream.
That is really cool. And I guess with a 55,000 horsepower electric drive motor, you definitely want to be as efficient as possible.
That's right. When you turn that key, it's starting to get expensive already.
Do you guys have models that we could take a look at? I'm a kind of a model geek, so I'd love to take a look at some stuff that's been in there.
Absolutely.
I have no idea what this is, Eric. It's very cool. It looks a little bit like a C-17.
So it's not. But I challenge your viewers to make sure that they try and figure it out, post it up. We'll see who comes up with the right answer.
Okay.
But this is one of the models that actually flew in bit width. As you can see here, what we have is a plate. And so what we can do is we can mount with relatively small levels of interference to the actual airflow what a full-size plane would be. One of the incredible things, I think, is if you look really closely at this leading edge, you can actually see some of the pressure ports. So one of the types of data we collect on these big models is pressure. So a model of this scale probably would have somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 1,000 pressures itself. Wow. Each one of them being a tiny little hole that our mechanics, our helpful folks downstairs, always probably hate installing. And then our instrumentation techs hate sorting through every one of the little cables, make sure they're hooked up in the right spot.
Oh, I bet. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So how old is this model?
Oh, it's probably 20 years, I would say,
kidding.
maybe a little bit older. You know, we have a pretty good policy to try and either let our customers take it off our hands and put it in their own shop, or to put it in storage if we think that it'll be useful later on. So we have models like the 6.7 that have been in storage for 40 years now almost.
Can we go back to the test section and see the model that's in there now and kind of see what the difference is between the two? Obviously, it's not going to look like this, I don't think.
That's right. And that up there is trying to simulate the simplest model. This was an active study where we were looking at some
very
different
specific design.
That's right.
Okay. Cool. I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right. So how old is this?
Yeah.
You know, because it looks well used, but it looks pretty new.
Yeah, so we keep this one very, very clean, very, very refined. We actually out on the ops floor have scabbards for the wings. So we put them in like swords to make sure that nothing were to ever damage them. They have felt tops to make sure we're not scratching this surface. This specific model started its life about 50 years ago, and it's been built and adjusted and everything else since then. At that age, it probably wasn't flying, but it's been flying for 30 years.
So if this thing's 50 years old, has it been kind of a stand-in for some of Boeing's like biggest and best?
You know, that's a good question. We don't use this as a stand-in for the models that fly, and this model is to prove that our tunnel hasn't changed. So we use this all to keep everything consistent, so we know exactly what's the same, and if there's any differences, we can isolate those using this model here.
So this is the benchmark.
This is the benchmark. This is the truth,
Got it.
the fact. Everything about this model needs to stay pristine and the same throughout all of our tests.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about these little
trip
red
strips.
bumps up here. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so these trip strips are going to essentially kick the flow so that it creates a laminar surface, just like what you'd see out in the actual sky. So we're trying our best to simulate the same flow properties in here as we see outside. And one of the ways we do that is we team up with our flight test team up the street. And what they'll do is they'll shoot from inside the airplane on a real aircraft with a pressure measurement or with actual coulites, which are little pressure sensors in the wings, to determine what the pressure is all the way out during an actual flight. And then what we'll do is essentially the same thing from our external camera sources. We'll shoot the pressures, we'll shoot targets for deflections, or we'll measure the pressures for those same types of coulites. And we'll be able to compare and determine, are we seeing the same flow properties here as we see up the street and as we're flying around
that's very
off of
cool.
Boeing Field.
Man, you guys have thought of everything.
Yeah, and the crazy part is how little this tunnel has changed in 50 to 60 years. It's been largely the same tunnel from a test section perspective. It's incredible. We'll go back and try and break out, go just essentially go red team and try and figure out, okay, is there a better way to do this? Is there a better way to do this? And every time we find out that the folks who were back at 60, 70, 80 years ago who designed it originally thought of everything. Everything. It's so hard to beat what they were able to do. You know, we do a lot of stuff that's better on the data side and on the reduction side, but really incredible work that they did to make sure that the aero in this tunnel was as accurate as possible.
So Eric, I'm looking down the hallway. It looks like a hall.
Yeah.
And there's baffles down there. Can we go check those out? What is
Yeah,
that?
we absolutely can. They're actually turning vanes, but it's really cool. You think it's probably pretty small, don't you?
Yeah, it's, I mean, what about 10
it's a pretty
feet
cool
tall,
feature
something
here.
like
We'll
that?
take a peek.
Okay, because, you know, it doesn't look that big.
No, it absolutely doesn't. But as you'll notice, your voice is also echoing kind of oddly. So it's going to be incredible. As we get closer and closer, you're going to be feeling smaller
And
smaller
and smaller. Wow.
So.
It really is very cool. Well, I was totally wrong.
Yeah.
This is huge.
It's shocking. It surprises me every time I walk down here and I look back and I'm thinking, wow, it's 8 feet over there, and that's really, really tiny.
Is that really 8 feet up there?
8 feet high over there, and yet this is probably 20. So it's pretty incredible. But this serves a really good purpose, because all that flow, all that air as we're coming down here, we have to actually turn it all the way around to make sure we can get back to the same loop. So this is our form of a cha-cha slide. We turn to the right 90 degrees, and that loop is happening as fast as you can think it's happening when we're going Mach 1.1.
Now, one of the things we were talking about when we were setting up the cameras is you guys grease these vanes. Why?
That's a good question. You're like, wait, I thought you'd want a clean tunnel.
Yeah.
And actually, that's the most integral part to making sure that we keep our tunnel clean. So we walk through and we track all sorts of dust in, accidentally, unfortunately. And what that dust does is it'll get picked up, and instead of trying to hit our model with it, it'll hit these big blades that are covered in grease, and it'll stick into the grease. So it won't be able to travel all the way around. So that is a cleaning aid that's kind of like having a big, I don't know, like a big vacuum in the form of a stable spot.
That's brilliant. Who came up with that idea?
I don't know. Some of those geniuses we were talking about
no
that 60
kidding.
years ago.
So how often do you replace the grease? Do you just slap on another coat? Do you have to come in here every 6 months and like do a total clean?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. So the grease itself gets replaced a few times a year as it gets dirty. You know, as distasteful as it sounds, it's super important, and it's incredibly pertinent when we're looking at how clean our models get to stay because of it. We get to use them for 60 years.
Next time you do it, give me a call, because I'll totally do it for a couple hours.
Yeah? You promise?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Okay, Eric, I've said it before, but you guys don't do anything small in this thing. I think I know what this is, but this is
That's the fan. That's the big thing. That's what's pushing all of that air from that side as hard as it can this way to make sure it goes all the way back around the loop of the test section. And we're actually parallel to the test section. It's on the back side of here.
this direction.
Yeah.
You've got the heat exchanger.
That's right.
Where you take that 140 degree air and then put it down to a balmy 100 degree air.
But it's a dry heat. Remember, it's a dry heat, just like Arizona.
And it's 33 feet there.
Yep.
It's 21 feet here. And then what is it back in there?
It's 18, 19 feet. And then, of course, you have to remember that we have this nacelle, is what we actually call this. And so the air can't travel through that. So really the air is only traveling around that outside 3 to 4 foot band. And I've crunched down there. You really have to. We thought we had to go through that tight turn. It's really tight in there.
Can we go take a look at that?
We can try and we can
get
struggle in
close.
there. We can get close.
Okay,
for sure.
Let's do that.
Yeah, so this is actually the nacelle itself. So behind this wall is the gearbox and the motor and everything that's attached to it. And pardon me, not the motor, but the downstream transmission of what you see in the motor room. And these struts you see over here are the ones that are actually holding on to the nacelle, making sure that it doesn't fly down the tunnel with the rest of the air. But back behind it, you'll see those stators and those blades, and there's 2 stages of blades and 2 stages of stators. So just like a a jet engine, we actually compress the air and it hits the fan face and it's over compressed again. And so that's what's actually going to be forcing this air, creating a big pressure here, and it all wants to shoot down as quickly as possible.
That is really cool. All right, Eric, we were talking about it earlier, but this is actually that heat exchanger, and it looks like nothing more than a super giant radiator.
That's right. So just like a standard radiator, there is some fluid, and it's pumping through these plates, and then the fins that are attached to them are made out of aluminum, which has that really high heat transfer. And so it'll heat up this area here, and then we pump that water away from it, which is going to hold all of that heat energy, which then goes to our outdoor system. We actually have a water-to-water exchanger, which then we pump in an outdoor chamber. So we actually have a conversion, which is pretty neat and unexpected as compared to your filter at home.
Yeah.
You're using refrigerant, we're using water. So if it goes bad, no harm done. The water is treated for just a biocide, just to make sure we don't have any bugs growing in it.
Okay.
But other than that, in theory, it's not going to harm anyone or hurt anything. So if any of these ever start leaking, we just kind of let it leak, make sure we flag it, turn off that section, and try and keep running the best we can.
Wow. Oh my gosh, how cool is this? This has checked a lot of boxes for me. I have never done anything like this in my entire life. A huge shout out to Boeing and the lab test team here in Seattle, and a big thank you to Eric, who is an amazing host. We really appreciate you squiring us around and showing us everything and putting up with all my questions. Okay, keep tuning in. Facebook, YouTube. You never know what we're gonna do next. We are always on the loose, and you should be too. You know what? Now I gotta get out of here. There's gotta be a door in here somewhere. I'll just walk this way. Gotta be something around here. Just keep walking. I can maybe go down here. Probably end up like Tom Hanks in that movie, just living in this place. Be a little bit breezy. I bet my hair would look awesome though.